Welcome to Tampa Home Talk with your host, native Tampa real estate girl, Katrina Madewell, a full-time, passionate, out-of-the-box thinker, love for home ownership kind of realtor with over 21 years of combined mortgage and real estate experience. Tune in every week at this time for expert advice on everything you need to know about home ownership, finance, maintaining great credit, building wealth, and making your everyday life better, and how you can be financially successful today and tomorrow. Remember, love where you live or let Katrina fix it. Now, here's your host of Tampa Home Talk, Katrina Madewell.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon on Tampa Home Talk. We are delighted to have you here. We have a fantastic show. I think I say that every week, right, Chris? But we really do have a great show lined up for you this week. Really excited to bring you our guest for today's topic. And the premise for today's show is going to be how to buy, sell, or create a business. And so we're doing all these New Year's resolution themed topics for January. And we thought, what a great show, saving kind of one of the best for last. We are live in studio today, so you might want to take down our call-in line in case you have any questions for our guest. 727-441-3000. Again, that call-in number is 727-441-3000. So our guest today is Joy Randalls. She is the brains operations CEO. Do I have that right, behind Startup Grind?
Of course.
Okay. And she leads the efforts for Startup Grind and also is the founder and CEO for New Market Partners. She also has launched 16 startup companies, had 2 IPOs, 9 acquisitions, raising over $350 million in capital, and seen hard work and pay off really for just experiencing failure yourself.
Yes.
Which we were talking about that before the show started. That's it, you pay for that learning experience one way or the other, whether it's in failures or education, you're going to pay for it. She also has she's a speaker on entrepreneurship very regularly. Like we're luckily get you here for Tampa Home Talk, security and mobile, and New Market Partners helps emerging tech companies create scalable business, performs due diligence for capital raising and M&A. Joy is also the co-founder of 2 additional current ventures, Applied C2, which is a cybersecurity company, and Envision Communications. Which does...
Actually, structured cabling, data center wiring, all those types of things.
Okay. And so she's an active angel investor and board of directors for Technovia Florida.
Yeah, Technova Florida is a nonprofit which hosts Bar Camp Tampa Bay, Ignite Tampa Bay, and other educational events for entrepreneurs.
Which is amazing. We'll talk about Bar Camp in a minute because I have been to that event. And she's an organizer for Startup Weekend, Ignite Tampa Bay, Bar Camp. I mean, I could talk about you in an introduction for the first half of the show. But without further ado, I would like to welcome Miss Joy Randall. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So we'll talk about Startup Grind. We'll start there. Just
sure.
Because, I think a lot of people that know you or follow you on Twitter probably know you best for that,
sure.
I would say.
So Startup Grind is actually events we have all around the world. So now they're in more than 170 cities in 65 plus countries around the globe. And it was designed and started originally with the idea of helping educate, inspire, and connect entrepreneurs and really connect them through real connections, not just a networking event where everybody collects business cards and kind of goes on about their own way. The goal is to help make real connections for them. So each month we have an event in each of the cities and we bring in an entrepreneur or someone who provides services. So maybe bring in a lawyer who would talk about intellectual property protection and how you handle those type things.
So any little piece that goes to in and around that whole business start.
And it's a fireside style chat. So it's not, them getting up in the room, giving a presentation. And then we open it up so anyone who attends has the opportunity to ask questions of the speaker and get real one-on-one time with them after the event.
Now, is Startup Grind structured a lot like Bar Camp?
No, like Bar Camp's completely unstructured, right?
Okay.
So Startup Grind, we pick the guests, we invite them in, we promote them. Like next Tuesday, we have an event. We do them now at Cowork Ybor in Ybor City, which is adjacent to the Blind Tiger Cafe, which people may know better than knowing Cowork Ybor. And the lady who's coming in is a lady named Jan Mercer-Doms. She is the managing director of Plum Alley, which is the largest crowdfunding platform for female entrepreneurs. And they crowdfund all types of ventures that are for female entrepreneurs, not just technology. So it could be clothing, painting, creativity, anything like that. And so she's coming in from New York, and we'll have her as our guest.
Now, before, just to break it down in the most simplistic form, because I like to do that, can you explain a little bit to the person listening what crowdfunding is?
Sure. So crowdfunding means you have an idea, right? And you launch a campaign. So it's an online campaign. There's a lot of different sites. People would probably know things like Kickstarter or Indiegogo, right? So Plum Alley, the founder of Plum Alley, she came up with an idea. She said she started coding mobile for women in New York, which is the biggest group of teaching women how to code for mobile technology. And she said, well, that's not really enough. So I want to now do it for, things that branch beyond that enable all women in all different things. So she came up with the idea to take all the things that she was doing there, all of her marketing background, and put it into a platform that kind of gives you all the tools you need. So teaching you how to make a video so that your crowdfunding campaign is successful.
Gotcha.
Right? How to market it, how to do those types of things. And it really is designed all around women. But the guys can come too, because they'll learn a lot about marketing and a lot of other things from that. But the platform
just don't complain about the estrogen in the room, guys.
No, it actually could be good if they want to meet lots of great women. They should probably come out.
I love that thought. The crowdfunding, though, it's interesting because I've watched some of these, like, for example, on Kickstarter, when they're trying to go, and the premise behind that is like a lot of people donate from a lot of different places, right. And then they
usually get something in return.
Back?
So,
Okay,
So it could be like you could sponsor something if you're making a tangible product. Usually they get a tangible product in advance or some limited edition of a product. If it's software, then you get the software before it's released to the public. You might get a cool T-shirt, those kind of things. A really successful one ran here in Tampa for two different companies. One is Black & Denim, which is a clothing company. They did a phenomenal one, raised 5 times what they were originally trying to raise. And they got clothing, right? Was what the people got back that did that. And then Tampa Hackerspace, which for people who want to make tangible products and those type of things, which is here, they did want to raise money to fund their new building. And they gave away things, and they raised double what their original platform, what they were looking for in capital.
It's interesting. What's the range that you're seeing, for example, when you talk about crowdfunding and, a lot of people contributing from a lot of different places? What's the range in the end look like if that's done right? Like, what's the range in price that someone could raise doing that?
There have been people who've raised as little as a few $1,000s, and there have been people who've raised almost $1 million. It really depends on what you're doing. There's a company I read about the other day called Jibo, Jibo, and they've made a robot for families to have at home. It's very unusual. You should go check it out. But they're based in Boston, and I believe they raised $1.8 million.
Wow.
Crowdfunding.
We'll post that on our website at Tampa Home Talk. You can find us at tampahometalk.com, on Twitter at Tampa Home Talk, and just across the web, Facebook, all those fun little places. So when you talk about, and you share on this like to many, many, many people all over the U.S., but when you talk about business challenges and somebody thinks about, okay, starting a business or building a business, like where do I start? Like one of the best books I've ever read personally about business is The E-Myth, because they kind of break it down and tell you how to go there, but I don't think a lot of logistics are sort of missing in that.
Yeah, I think there's, it depends on where you are in this stage, right? If you're just starting out, I think, figuring out how to take your idea is the hardest part, right? You've got that back of the napkin kind of thing.
Right.
And how do I know if people really pay money for this, or how do I validate it? Those kind of things. I think that there's a methodology called Lean Startup, and it applies to things outside of tech. It was started by a bunch of tech guys.
So when you say Lean Startup, is like L-E-A-N?
Yeah, like L-E-A-N. And there's a thing called the Lean Canvas. And it actually teaches you how to kind of validate whether a product will work or not, how to go and test with customers. How do I get out of the building and go find out if somebody will give me money? I'll give you a great example. When we were naming, I had a company, Velocitude, so velocity and altitude, right, kind of combined into one word. We sold that company to Akamai at the end of 2010, but it was a mobile company, and we literally put pieces of paper together, made the name, and walked down the street before we decided to name the company, and there were like 5 of us, asking people if they understood what the name meant, right? So, and then we said, if we had this, and so we said, so they like the name, so we're like, good, we're onto something. It's in the Urban Dictionary now, by the way.
Wow.
And when we started the company, we started out saying we're going to do web development and mobile. So we're going to do social and mobile. And what we learned really quickly after we went and talked to some potential clients is nobody really cared about this social thing. There were a billion other people doing it, and people said, yeah, whatever, great for you. But the mobile side of it and how you would take content and display it on mobile devices, right? that was really interesting. So the company, we quickly evolved and switched things around. And we actually did the very first mint.com site. We actually built, and we used the money from that to launch the mobile company, which is pretty funny.
And Mint is fabulous.
It is.
I'm totally, I'm a big Dave Ramsey fan. I endorse, places like Mint because I use it myself. It really kind of keeps your spending in check. And even if you don't do a budget for yourself, it'll do one for you.
Right.
Because it keeps track of your spending habits and it'll say, you're X amount over this month.
But the other cool thing is, like, if people have an idea, like, look at how the lean canvas is great. It's a very easy read. Your 12-year-old can read it. So it's not complex. The canvases are available online. It's a cheap book. I think it's about $10 or $12 for the book at the bookstore in the paperback form. And it'll walk you through the process. So it'll teach you the things to do to go out and validate. Other cool things are like Startup Weekend, right? There's a Startup Weekend. They've done them in Pinellas. They do them in Pasco. They do them in Hillsborough. We're doing one down in Manatee in Sarasota County as well. And it's a thing, you come up with your idea, pitch your idea, and literally a team of people will help you bring your idea to reality.
That's
over the
so
course
awesome.
of Friday night to Sunday night.
That's, when people mastermind like that and collaborate, it makes one little idea it's a great little seed, but then when everybody adds a bunch of nutrients and water and different stuff, it just grows into this big tree.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you talk about, because I noticed a business plan, we get this a lot, and we plan every year. And I noticed for every year that we plan, we always seem to hit our goal. And the ones that we don't, the years in the past that I didn't plan, we didn't hit a goal. And I guess it's kind of like saying if you're throwing darts or you're shooting a pistol or anything, if you don't have a target, you can't hit it.
Absolutely. There's this thought now that business plans, you don't need a business plan to raise capital, right? We can talk about capital in a little while. I don't think you have to have a crazy complex business plan to be successful, but you need to have a plan. Right? Because just putting it out there, you may not be able, you don't have anything to refer back to. And it's really more tracking, how are you doing towards achieving those goals? Even if the goals have to shift during the course of the year and you adjust your plan, it's a matter of kind of keeping yourself honest. And if you're working with other people and keeping them honest, that way everybody's kind of going towards the same goal. And you can use something like the Lean Canvas to kind of put, to start with. And then take it and just turn it into simple goals, right? Maybe there's goals for sales, there's goals for marketing. If you're building a product or, you've got an idea and it's going to maybe something that is tangible. So you've got to go have like injection molds made to turn something into plastic or whatever those are, right? You have something to keep track of and you understand how much money it's going to take and how long, what the time frames are like. And other people will help you if they don't know what your plan is, right? Then they have no way
It's hard to help.
Yeah.
So what's the fastest that you say would need to go in any business plan, even if it's simple, it's written out, it's on a vision board?
Yeah.
Like what would that plan consist of? Like, for example, my plan in our business, because I host Tampa Home Talk, but I also sell real estate. It's our primary business. So our goal last year was that we were going to help. It was actually 40 families and we helped 42 last year. So our goal for this year is 100. But it's interesting when you put those little pieces down, like for us, it was more about how many families are we going to help versus how much money we're going to make. And that stuff always follows.
You're absolutely right. You have to execute against the plan, right? Like, look, use a great example that everybody likes to talk about, right? I was very fortunate early in my career. I got to work for Apple, right? And I met Steve Jobs. I didn't work for Steve Jobs. I worked for Guy Kawasaki for a little while, so I was pretty happy with that. But there was always a vision there, right? It was the change the world vision. But behind that, there were pieces each way. So it'd be like, we've got to get this far, right? Yeah, I want to change the world and I'll look way out there, but I understand I have to get this far. So you have to have some sort of idea of what the goal is. And if you know what the goal is you want, like where you're saying, I want to help 40, right? Mm-hmm. Then you can back into the plan, right? I know what I want to achieve. Now, what are all the things I have to do in order to make that a reality?
Excellent.
So some of those are financial. Some of those are just things you need to do when you get out of bed every morning, right? To go do your job so that you stay motivated. I have a buddy of mine, Ian Ippolito, who lives here. Ian sold his last company to Freelancer. He had a company called VWorker. And Ian has this thing. He's like, every morning when I wake up, before I get out of bed, I lay there and I prioritize the things I have to get done to achieve the goals, right? I've got these goals. But I do that and like pick my top 5 things I have to get done today. He goes, and I eat the frog first.
Mm-hmm. Brian Tracy.
So it's like,
Eat
right?
that frog first. I mean, it makes sense because the whole premise of that book is if you push the stuff off to the end, then you don't get to it and it gets pushed back and back and back.
Absolutely.
And everybody has fires, right? Any good, busy business person is going to have stuff. It's just how you prioritize that stuff.
Yeah, and just figure out what everybody has an optimal time of how they work, right? Like for me, I like to do things I like to do it in the morning, and a lot of entrepreneurs are that way. But some people don't work as well with that. Some people have to get up, have their coffee, maybe go for their run, come back, take a shower before they get started. Figure out what your optimum time is. And the project that's going to be the hardest, put that in that time slot.
Yes. I have to ask you just a curious question. At what point in your history did you work with Apple? Like what? Because I read out of curiosity.
Yeah.
I don't really read hardly any autobiographies, but I did read the Steve Jobs autobiography. Right. So I kind of, it was different, a lot different than the movie.
It was just post the launch of the Macintosh computer. And they liked me because my minor in school was in graphic design. So they wanted someone who could be an advocate, calling into all the publishing and printing houses and doing all those kinds of things. And Apple was and still is one of the most phenomenal companies on the planet, in my opinion.
Just to see where they started and where they are now. And the technology was there before they invented it. It's just they made it happen with a business plan. Because I remember there was this laptop that I bought. It was at a trade show or something. It was really expensive at the time, like super expensive. And it had the touchscreen technology. It was a small little laptop. Yeah. It would flip around and fold down and create what is now known as the iPad, right? To everybody else, or a tablet. And so that technology was there. It was just interesting because it was really expensive, and Apple figured out how to make it, and their products are still expensive by general, but they've made them affordable. Like people can afford them.
They are. I mean, they're still, if you look at the performance of, say, a MacBook versus, a Windows-based machine, right? If you get comparable processing speed and stuff, it's not that big of a difference, but there is a premium that you pay there for that. And part of it is because they can. I mean, right. to be honest. They have the highest grossing, square footage in retail in the world. Right. And the next closest person is like 30% of what they gross from that perspective. But I think the difference is, like you're talking about the iPad. Apple had a product years ago, which most people don't even remember. If you Google it, it'll be interesting, called a Newton. And they came out with that product, and it was the very first version of what an iPad would ultimately be. And it was all based on Steve Jobs' vision that you would have this device. You could communicate from anywhere. Well, it was black and white, and you had a stylus and you wrote on it. But it did have a cellular modem, so you could communicate from anywhere. But it was pretty clunky. Nothing like what you have now. But Apple looks at it, right? And I think this holds true for every business. What I love about them is it's all about the user experience.
You're right.
They build every single product based around the person who's going to use that product.
I think you hit the nail on the head with that, because as for us, it's always about customer experience. Like right. Anybody can sell you a house, anybody can sell your house, but the experience getting there can make all the difference in the world.
Selling or buying your house, right? So if I've got somebody who wants to buy, to me, like when I bought the house I'm in now, I love the agent who helped me when we went, and I referred 1 million people to her because she was phenomenal. She took it all in and kind of went from there. But no matter what product you have, if customers love your product or they love you, in this case, when you're providing a service, you and your business and those kind of things, they'll keep coming back forever.
Right. And it's the experience, it's everything we do along the way. There's a lot of hiccups that people can encounter, and we talk about that in advance and then some. But it's starting with the end in mind, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
No, absolutely.
So a lot of people ask about like filing, licensing, permits, that kind of stuff. That's pretty common. Mm-hmm. So like the minimum, like in the state of Florida and, in even some other states, what's the minimum usually that's required just to get started?
If you're pretty smart and you follow the online rules, $500.
And it's state license, right, of some sort, I'm sure.
It depends on what kind of business you have, right? But your normal business licenses, filing your articles of incorporation, all those things, all that can be done online. And literally, it's about $500 in cash to make that happen. If you've got some special, like you're going to be an electrician or you're going to do something like that, special licensing, there'll be a little bit of different things around that. But most businesses, to cover your city licenses, if you're going to have sales tax, all your filings, $500 will do it.
It's interesting. It's such a small amount. Like anybody can save $500.
Yes.
Anybody can save $500.
You could even include your website in there.
Wow. We have to take a real quick break here on Tampa Home Talk. We are live in studio, so if you want to chime into the conversation, you can. I know most people catch us on a podcast later at Tampa Home Talk, but our studio call-in line, 727-441-3000, 727-441-3000. We'll be back in a minute, and when we get back, we're going to talk all about how to continue to build this capital and find co-founders and all those other little things that are going to go into that great business idea that you have. Stick around. We'll be back in a minute.
Now you can't stand to think, and it's already started without you.
You've heard this before. Interest rates are at all-time record lows. But if your interest rate is 4% or above, you owe it to yourself to call Silverton Mortgage Specialist. Silverton is a direct lender, and the best part about this is that the entire loan process is handled in-house. From application to close, we do it all in the same building, which means that our loans close fast and our clients know what's going on every step of the way. Our contact info is located on TampaHometalk.com under Radio Show. What makes Silverton different? Products. We offer VA, FHA, USDA, and conventional loans pricing. Best rates with the lowest closing costs. Process everything in-house. It's handled right here and not outsourced to anyone that no one can reach. This way we can avoid surprises. Our people are simply the best, and we know you'll agree. What will closing Silverton Mortgage Specialist mean to you? A smooth process, real home loan value, and personal attention from real professionals. Silverton Mortgage Specialists are here to serve you. Visit TampaHometalk.com under Radio Show for all of our contact details. NMLS 109600 is an equal housing lender and Florida and Georgia residential mortgage licensee.
Hi, this is Aaron Davis, owner of Hillsborough Title. Hillsborough Title is a local, family-owned title agency here in Tampa Bay. Our service, strength, and knowledge make us different. We've served Tampa Bay area for over 30 years. From Polk County to the Gulf, Pasco to Manatee, Tampa Bay, we've got you covered. Call us at 813-712-8888 or visit us on the web at thebesttitle.com. That's thebesttitle.com.
You're buying a house. Congratulations. So while you're worrying about the paperwork, leave the moving part to us. We're Woody & Sons Moving Company, a Florida licensed and insured mover, and we offer same-day written estimates. Plus, no sneaky mileage, stairs, or additional stop fees. All we ask is that you check out our great ratings on Google and Angie's List, then go to woodyandsons.com to learn more. Whether you need a full-service pack and move or some extra hands, at Woody & Sons Moving Company, we move you.
Welcome back to Tampa Home Talk. Thanks so much for rejoining us this week. You can catch us here every week, same time, same place. Today's show is all about how to buy, sell, or create a business. And we're talking a lot more about the creation side today because we have Joyce Randalls in here, starter of Startup Grind and a whole slew of stuff, which we are going to post on Tampa Home Talk. So just check us out at TampaHometalk.com, also across the web on Facebook and Twitter. Studio call-in line, 727-441-3000, 727-441-3000. In the prior segment, we were talking all about, do I need a business plan? How can I start up capital? Some of those things. And then during the break, which is probably a great place to start because we'll get going another direction, I'll forget. But like we talked about, if you're starting to by yourself versus with a partner.
Right. So if you're starting by yourself, you don't necessarily have to have a lawyer. If you're going to do something with a partner, I always advise everyone to have a lawyer drop an operating agreement for you, right? So if it's just you, then hopefully you're not going to cheat yourself, so it'll work out just fine. Everybody will love each other. But when you first start out, whether it's one founder, two founders, three, however many are there, everybody's happy, right? We're going to go build this great business and we're all going to make lots of money.
Yeah, everybody's in.
And it's all in, right? And then when times get tough and you have to make decisions, you should talk about things like, how are you going to make a decision, right? If there's two partners, right? Do you both have to agree? What happens when you can't agree? How do you arbitrate that? And, if you've got multiple partners, is it an equal equity split? Is it not equal? Is somebody putting in capital and other people are putting in sweat equity? You kind of need to work through all of those things and do it up front. So there's not any misunderstanding. And when you have problems that you go through, then you have agreement to refer back to and go like, hey guys, this is what we agreed to.
So imagine an exit plan is built into every single one of those. Right. So if it totally doesn't work out and We
Absolutely.
have to leave.
How do we deal with that?
Got to figure this out. What about non-competes? Like, do you have any take on that?
Yeah, actually, it's funny because I moved here from Georgia, and a non-compete will not hold up in Georgia ever. However, in Florida, it's a little different. If you have one written really, really well, they have a tendency to hold up down here. So I caution both parties. If you're going into a business where you're the one bringing all the IP, intellectual property, into the business, I don't know how keen I'd be on signing a non-compete if it were the only kind of work I'd done my whole life.
Right.
That might permit me from going and doing something
Because you're building
else.
it. Anybody can get capital, like you said.
So I think you have to kind of work through that and come up with something that works for both parties. If you're hiring employees and you're afraid, you want to protect your IP, I think having a non-compete is a really good way to go. Have a lawyer draft one up for you. You may have to negotiate a little bit with different employees, and that's really a personal decision you'll have to make of how much are you willing to flex on that in order to get an employee that you want. But it's always a good idea, and it's not super expensive. If you find a good small business lawyer, it's not a ton of money.
Well, something's better than nothing.
Something's better than nothing, and it'll cost you a lot more later than it will up front.
Oh, yeah. It always costs more later. So how do you protect your great idea? Like you talk about IP and intellectual property, and I have this thing, like I'm thinking about this client that I had once, and he created this thing called the diaper belt, like where people would always take their diapers off and, some kids smear stuff wherever and whatever. But he created this thing called the diaper belt and got someone produced. And I don't know, I think they moved to Germany. I don't really know where he landed with that. But I just thought it was interesting that, they started with something like that, got an idea from a need, right?
I mean, that's usually how it happens. Like when people come up with ideas for a business, that's usually like either something bothers them, right, that they can't figure out, or they see somebody doing it. Sometimes people will be working for another company, right, and they see a need that the company is not filling, and they end up deciding, hey, I'll go do that,
Hey, I
right?
can make a business out of
right,
this.
I already know who the customers would be that would buy it. I'll go do that. If you have IP, there's two different ways of looking at it, right? You may have something that's patentable. If you have something that's patentable, you can actually do a patent search kind of on your own. As a matter of fact, there's an event, and I can get you the information on it. I don't know off the top of my head. It's coming up next week, and the lawyer is a guy named Chris Paradis. Paradis Law, spelled like paradise. Here, he's doing a free event next week, kind of talking about how to do a patent search on your own. In Tampa. I'm not sure exactly of the
That's
location.
nice. Well, we can post it at Tampa Home Talk.
Yeah.
We'll also tweet it out at Tampa Home Talk and on Facebook.
And if it's something you can do a patent, right, then you need to have a patent lawyer after you've done the basic search, right, to draw your patent. There's a lot of good patent lawyers in this town that are out here.
What's the cost for something like that to patent an idea?
It depends. It could be as little as $2,000 or $3,000, and it could be as much as $50,000, right, or more. Depending
Why
on
does
what
that vary based on the product?
It does. It varies a lot. So if there's lots of engineering drawings and schematics and things like that associated with it, it gets more complex. If it's something that's a relatively simple search and you can do it, there's some great people who volunteer their time, like out at USF Connect, that can give you some good advice on what it would cost. There's a lawyer out there who gives his time named Tom Toner, who's an intellectual property lawyer and a patent lawyer. He's quite good. But you can also protect ideas that aren't patentable, and most people don't know that. So it's called a trade secret policy that you create inside your business, and it's more about processes, right? It could be like maybe you've created some really cool way to do something on the web, but it wouldn't be patentable, or it'd be so expensive to patent it that it would take you so long and it wouldn't really matter. Like those type of patents, it takes us a long time to get certain software patents, right? You can craft a trade secret policy and be very descriptive in what you put in it, and make sure that it's filed with your corporate documents. You don't have to send it to anybody else. But if you have an employee come in, we were talking about non-competes, right? Let's say I'm going to go hire a developer now to come in and develop the product. So I have to make him privy to what's in my trade secret policy. He signs an agreement stating that he will not disclose that information anywhere else. If he does, then he's subject to a lawsuit himself.
Right.
Right? And it's a great way to kind of protect it. The other thing it does is when you go to sell your business, let's say you're going to sell that business later, and you're negotiating with the buyer on the other side, you don't have to really disclose that. You can say, it's a trade secret policy. I don't want to make that public because it's not a patent. So until we have a term sheet that we all agree to, right? You've offered me this, that we all agree to the terms. Other than that being validated, then you don't show them any of that information. And speaking personally, when we sold Velocitude, the company that was doing the mobile web, it made a $5 million difference in the price of the company.
Wow.
So
just
that's a
that
lot
one
of
little
money.
idea is worth $5 million. I
And
love it.
It probably cost us $1,500 to have the agreement drawn up by the lawyer. So we thought it was a good deal.
I would say so. That's a good exchange of time and money. So at what point do you think, okay, I might need a co-founder, I might need, a board of directors, and some of these things that get a little bit more complex as businesses can grow?
I think you get started, right, with your idea, validate your idea, make sure it's something that's out there. You may need a co-founder for that, depending on what you're building. Maybe you're the person who has the idea, but you're not the engineer. Or you're the person who's great at sales and marketing, but you're like, well, I need to have somebody build this tangible product for me. I think in that point, you probably want to go find someone who has that other side of the skill set. And ideally, they have a little bit different personality than you, a different skill set, right?
Right.
It usually works better that way than if you have like two type A salespeople kind of beating each other up.
Well, you have like a lot of your D's, right, that might have the idea, and a lot of the people behind it are the really organized type, like the C's,
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're talking about like the DIS thing, it's pretty funny. So like I'm a D and a very high D with an I. My S is really, really low. And then I have some C over here. My business partner in my other business is a very odd combination. He is actually a DC. And it's perfect because, he does these other things. He's a very driven person, but he doesn't necessarily care about being the front person. He likes to control his part of it, but super analytical, and that works out perfect.
You stay out of his way, he'll dot all the I's and cross all the T's, and it'll be perfect.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So for board of directors, I know we were talking about this, and advisors, like obviously you'd maybe go from one then to two, or start with two and you collaborate with them. And like for our business, we're small. We get ideas from, the people that work within our business to make our systems better. So they'll find little holes and things that we can fix and make better, and we go from there. But at what point does a company grow do you think they need to have that in place?
I think
a certain number of employees.
2 things. I think it'd be great to find a mentor. Like I think everyone, particularly if you're doing something, definitely if you're doing something in a business you've never done before, like a line of work, find a mentor. And you can find mentors all over. I mean, you go to places where you think that person would hang out. Go to your local SCORE office. It's 100% free, right? And you can go online and look at SCORE and see, is there someone who lives near you who's done this type of business? Would they do it? Use LinkedIn, find somebody who's like, I want to bounce ideas off of you. A lot of people will do that. I mean, particularly if they've been successful, to give back to the community, right? They're not looking to get anything in return. And then later, as the business grows, if they've provided valuable information, you could put them on a board of advisors and give them something if you like, pay or some small piece of equity or share profit or something like that, right? But I think that outside of that, a board of directors, you kind of got to either you want to appear much larger than you are, right? That's one way of looking at it. Or you've got to have real business, like some real business coming in to make it worthwhile.
Right.
Because when you start creating a board of directors, they're going to want something.
Right.
Right. So you're going to either have to give up equity or you're going to have to pay them.
So maybe a little bit of both.
Right. And so I wouldn't advise people to go do that until they think it really makes sense. When building out a board of directors or a board of advisors, I always tell people to look, like you want to find someone who can either bring you tremendous advice, like they may be the best engineer in the area that you're focused on, right? Or if you've built this big service business, like, I don't know, you have a carpet cleaning business or whatever, right? Find somebody who's scaled a business like that, right? That's the person you want for your mentor. Outside of it, you want to look for somebody who can bring you customers. Right. So if you're bringing someone on, right, they're going to be your advocate and help you go find clients. Maybe they have a business that's synergistic to yours so that you can do that. Then it's worthwhile because you can help each other.
Right. You all have the same vision in a sense. So when you talk about funding, like I'm sure people are still thinking, well, how do I get money? Like you guys have talked about crowdfunding, and I got that. Yeah, Kickstarter, some other places. But how do I actually get real money for my business?
So Kickstarter, those kind of things are great. Depending if you have something, they work better for tangible items than they do for things that are not tangible. But we have lots of services businesses in our area, right? You could, if you've done something in a service industry before, you could go get an SBA loan. You could start by putting it on your credit cards. That's pretty normal. I tell people, start by figuring out, could you go without earning any money for at least 6 months, right? If the business produced no money and you're working at full time for 6 months, could you survive? Now, that doesn't mean you couldn't start the business while you still have a job.
Right.
Right? And the business might not produce anything. There's a ton of people who've done that, starting it and working at nights and weekends and stuff like that on their business. A lot of people will start it, get some traction, hire an employee because they make more in their day job than what they would have to pay the employee. right, to grow the business to the point that they can walk away. But I think the other side of it is most people get their money from friends and family if they're getting their initial seed capital. They're angel investors, so you can look for angel investors out there. Can
you talk about some of these different things too? Because I know we talk about angel investors, venture capitalists. Kind of break this stuff down for the person listening, in case maybe just a lay person. They're thinking, "Wow, I don't have a 4-year degree, but I want to start a business. I have this great idea." Just break it down a little bit for the person listening.
Yeah, I think actually, if you look, you'll find most entrepreneurs don't actually have a degree. It's kind of funny. Even in the tech world, most of them actually end up dropping out of school if you look at even like tech CEOs, which is kind of hilarious. So I would never let that get in my way if I were anybody. So that actually probably makes you more determined.
My degree is in a field that I've never worked one day in that business ever.
I think that if you look at it, so usually it starts with like whatever your little seed capital is that you put in of your own money, right? You've saved up some money, you put some money in, kind of get the basics going, like we talked about earlier, $500 to get your company started and kind of go from there. Then if you don't have any more money to put in, you start looking at either like taking out a small loan, right? If you have a home, I've known people who took out like a $10,000 out of their HELOC, right? So they said, I'll take $10,000 out of my home equity line. I'm going to use that for this. I'm not going to pay myself, but if I start my business from home, I can run it for a period of time, like doing it like that. If you've got, good credit or you've got something you can use as an asset, then you could take out a loan, a regular loan or an SBA loan. SBA loans take longer to get, right? An SBA guaranteed loan. But from there, generally you go to the angel investor pool, which angels are individuals who decide to invest in your business in exchange for equity. Some will do them in the form of a convertible note, which means they'll loan you money at interest, which is about 10% is the going rate, so it's not cheap.
Well, they're loaning you money based on an idea. There's not really any collateral there.
Right. But there are people here, there's quite a few in the area that will do those kind of things, right? And then you pay that money back once you're making money later. And then for venture capital, that's generally, I've gotten through it. I've got something tangible, right? There are exceptions where you go with an idea, but I've got something tangible or at least an alpha version of my software, or I've got something here. And then you go to a venture capital firm, pitch your idea, and they take a chunk of equity in exchange for this. And
so what people would be familiar with, like Shark Tank?
Like Shark Tank. So the guys on Shark Tank are technically angel investors.
Okay.
They're angel sharks. But you have guys like Mark Cuban, right? Mark Cuban has investments in like over 1,400 companies, I think now. I mean, but for Mark Cuban to write a check for $50,000 is really nothing.
Right.
Right.
Now, would you say a lot of the angel investors, some of these people maybe pulled money out of other places, like when the stock market started to crash, or other places where they just wanted to maybe spread their eggs out a little bit?
A lot of them have, and a lot of them, you'll find the majority of them are business owners themselves, right? They've been entrepreneurs in the past, and they've had successful businesses. They've exited those businesses, or they're making capital. And so they're making choices to, A, make more money, and B, help other entrepreneurs.
And it makes sense. I mean, like you say, you reap what you sow. So if you've been given and you're fortunate, you should definitely give back to help somebody
Absolutely.
else. Help them grow, help them learn. We have to take a really quick break, but we're going to be back in just a minute. When we come back, we're going to talk about how do I get those initial customers? How do I pick a name? Like that's like naming a child, right? How do I name my child? Right. We're going to talk about these things and a few more when we come back in just a few minutes here on Tampa Home Talk. You can catch us across the web, Facebook, Twitter at Tampa Home Talk. Back in just a minute.
Aaron Davis here, owner of Hillsborough Title, serving all of Tampa Bay. Our service, strength, and knowledge make us different. From Polk County to the Gulf, Pasco to Manatee, Tampa Bay, we've got you covered. Visit us on the web at thebesttitle.com. That's thebesttitle.com.
You've heard this before. Interest rates are at all-time record lows. But if your interest rate is 4% or above, you owe it to yourself to call Silverton Mortgage Specialist. Silverton is a direct lender, and the best part about this is that the entire loan process is handled in-house. From application to close, we do it all in the same building, which means that our loans close fast and our clients know what's going on every step of the way. Our contact info is located on TampaHometalk.com under Radio Show. What makes Silverton different? products. We offer VA, FHA, USDA, and conventional loans pricing. Best rates with the lowest closing cost. Process everything in-house. It's handled right here and not outsourced to anyone that no one can reach. This way we can avoid surprises. Our people are simply the best, and we know you'll agree. What will closing Silverton Mortgage Specialist mean to you? A smooth process, real home loan value, and personal attention from real professionals. Silverton Mortgage Specialists are here to serve you. Visit TampaHometalk.com under Radio Show for all of our contact details. NMLS 109600 is an equal housing lender and Florida and Georgia residential mortgage licensee.
Welcome back, and you're listening to Tampa Home Talk. I'm your host, Katrina Madewell, and we're here today with Joy Randalls, the brains and operations behind Startup Grind and many other things, talking all about how to buy, sell, and create a business, more on the creation side today. And so if you missed any part of our earlier show, you're going to want to catch it out. It will be on a podcast, or you can search for us across the web at Tampa Home Talk. So kind of where we left off, we were talking about how do we get that initial customer. So I got the idea, I patented, I saved 6 months so I could, work at my other job or work without pay or whatever that is. And now how do I drive customers to my product?
Well, I think it depends on what your product is. So you can start with marketing. If you understand, part of your process of building out is figuring out who your target customer would be, right? So as you go through that, if it's a service business, I've seen people go door to door, right? Or go business to business for that matter, right? B2B, let's say you've got a service business that provides services to other businesses, going in and letting them see you, right? And that, who you are, so they know that they could actually trust you or those kind of things. Ask for referrals through people that you know, right? Send everybody that you know. If you launch a new business, send an email to every person you know and say, this is what we do. This is what we're looking to do. Please tell your friends about us, all these kind of things. If you've got a large network of friends, do that. If there's industry areas where the product would be a focus, so let's say you created something that would be of interest to real estate people, right? So real estate sales agents, then, I would go and say, how can I target all the real estate organizations that are out there, right? But and the broadest net that you can cast, I think, to get it in front of the right audience is good. Email is pretty cheap or free, right? In how you do that. You can use things like if you can create an email list, you can either send personal emails, or you can use tools like MailChimp. MailChimp's free. Yeah,
I was going to say, that's a good one too, because most emails you can only send so many.
Yeah, MailChimp, I think on the free account, you can send up to 2,000 at a time.
And
so
do you,
2,000 or 3,000.
Do you think most of them, like in, companies like Google that have Gmail, a lot of people have a Gmail account now, and the stuff, they have their priority inbox because we get so many emails. I rely on that thing totally.
Sure.
So the top part is all the stuff you want to get, and the other stuff kind of hangs out in the bottom. Do you think a lot of the stuff that comes from MailChimp and some of those other mail service providers, you think they squeeze their way in the bottom?
It's a good question. I'd have to go and check next time. I'll send one to myself and find out.
Or you send it to me, I'll let you know. Text me back.
It's like, okay. I think that a lot of people, if they only use their Gmail account, maybe. I don't know now that they've got those kind of things.
It's a curious question because, stuff is always changing. Like Google's always changing their algorithms.
Yeah, Google's a whole different
the rules
animal.
are never the same. Like it's like a moving target.
There are others like Constant Contact, which definitely don't do that, but Constant Contact and those kind of things are a paid service. So I always try to tell entrepreneurs, if you're just starting out, right, and you have a limited budget, use the free tool first. You can always upgrade to the other tool later. So you have tools like that. For managing email, like there's a new one called SaneBox, which is great for prioritizing emails and stuff, and that's kind of free. If you want to get a great business email address, right, Google has Google Apps for Business are $5 per user.
Wow.
Per month. So, it's one less Starbucks you can have.
Right.
It's kind of how you look at it that way. But that gives you not only your email, but it gives you your spreadsheet stuff. It gives you cloud storage, all those other things. So if you're exchanging things back and forth, you have access to all that as well.
So I have a suggestion and a thought, and I'd love to hear you chime in on it, but I'm just thinking about myself. We talked about the first business I started, I was 23. And granted, technology wasn't then what it is today. You know what I mean? But it was still out there. I would have had to look for it. But I think and this is kind of just what I see in the facet of dealing with different people. And one of the mistakes that I made early on was not having a CRM or a customer relationship manager, some type of a database where you can keep track of your clients and your prospective clients and that type of stuff. Do you want to chime in on
I would
that?
definitely say you want to have that. There's tons of tools available. There's some that are free. There's some that are paid. Like Salesforce actually was free originally, and they started charging, but then they came out. Now apparently they have a new version, which I think is free again, for startups, like specifically for an entrepreneur who's starting out, right? And if it's just you can usually get something that's like 1 user or 2 users for free. There's tools like Zoho has a CRM, which is 100% free. Sugar, those kind of guys have CRM. So I think that's really great. It lets you manage your list, like if you have multiple lists that you're mailing to and those kind of things. And you can always upgrade from all of those, right? They give you the small version for free and you upgrade as you grow.
Right.
Once you actually have revenue coming in.
Have you seen any companies that maybe started and didn't do something simple like that, and then they kind of advanced quickly, and I imagine it's hard to catch up at that point?
It's painful to catch up at that point. I mean, I've lived through that before. And, because when the tools there weren't as many tools out there originally.
No,
right? And everything
not
was
at
really
all.
expensive. And so we'd make a decision like, we'll just track it on a spreadsheet.
Right. Handwritten spreadsheet at that.
Yeah, and that doesn't work really well later. So now it's changed so much that technology, there's so many things that are free. I mean, I do mean like literally free out there. It doesn't make sense not to have it. If you're doing events, right, you have tools like Eventbrite. There's a company, local company here called LaunchTrack, and things like that. They do all these different things, and it's 100% free to you unless you're charging for the event, right? If you're charging for the event, they take like a 1% fee to do that, or like to like a maximum of like $2 a ticket or something.
Which is amazing. Like
process.
technology, like just so
Right.
it makes our lives so much easier.
It does.
So when you think about the name, like what are some of the things that you've experienced? We were talking about, how do I name my baby? How do I name
Right.
this
It's like,
business?
what do I do? Well, I've heard all kinds of things. I was telling you during the break, I had a buddy of mine who just created a business here called Vocreo, and it's a creative agency. And Vocreo sounds like a crazy name, but it basically is I create in Latin. Every domain, this is how I started. If you ask now, when I go look, what can I get a domain for? Which is painful.
It's interesting you're starting with the domain.
Right, because I know I've got to have online presence, right? So if I pick a cool name, but the domain's already taken, then I got to go pay some guy $10,000 for the domain, right? I don't want to do that. So you kind of start looking at it that way. There's a lot of name generation tools. Like if you Google Startup Grind, if you Google like startup name or name generator, there's about 10 and they're free. So you can go and start plugging some things in. But to me, try to make it be something that you could put a message behind, right? So like Vocreo, I create, makes sense for a digital agency, right? And something they can explain. Interesting name, but kind of makes people ask, well, what does that mean? What do you do?
Conversation starter.
Right. And it's a very simple explanation kind of on the other side. Or make it something that has to do with your business, right? Like Envision Communications, when we talked about your company, the way that name came about was we said, we're doing this, but we want to give people a single point to be able to view everything in their network, which is not that from any type of device. So if you've got your phone out, you want to look at it while you're at dinner to make sure everything on your network's working smoothly, you can do that. So we said, well, how is that? So it's like communications is part of it, but what if we give you Envision with an I, right? To be able to kind of see everything inside of your network. And that's actually how we came up with the idea.
That makes sense. Because your cybersecurity company, right? So speaking of traffic and domains, what's some ideas to get some traffic moving in that direction?
It's really, you mentioned earlier, like Google changing their algorithms. They change all the time.
It's not like it was back in the day, like when there wasn't that many domains. And if you had a website, anybody that was on the web could find you and it was easy.
The best way to do it, honestly, so there's two things, and we'll talk about SEO in just a second, but the best thing is good content. The better the higher quality content you have on your website, the better your rankings are going to be from a search engine perspective. The easier it's going to be to find you, right? And so you want to put things in and you want to update your content so it's relevant. And I understand, like a small business owner, I can't go like write a blog post every day, right? Create something where you have like an RSS feed coming into your site so there's fresh content based on things that are relevant to the people who be coming to see you, your business, right? And that will help keep that flow there. SEO, for anybody who doesn't know it, is search engine optimization. And what that is it looks for links and phrases inside your website and where they link back to. So you'll hear terms like link building and this and that and all the other
Right.
stuff. And that's really what SEO relates to. It's more about having unique terms. And a lot of people pay for pay-per-click advertising, which is okay if you know what you're doing and is okay if your business gets bigger. But it can get really expensive really fast if you don't. So don't let someone tell you that that's the way to start your business, because it's not.
And things are so ever changing. Like, you know, you have people like me and likely people like you that we're probably ignoring those prepaid ads anyway and going straight to the organic
I look
content.
at what the organic search provides.
Right.
The other thing about organic search, if it's the content on your website, it will be relevant no matter what device somebody comes to your site on. So you have to think about today, 54% of all web searches come from mobile devices. So you want something that's going to be there, and the algorithms on mobile completely ignore anything other than organic search. And most people don't know that either.
That's good. That's a good little tip. And it's, you know, everything really, like I was following those numbers like a couple years back, and that number grows every year, like the sites that people access on mobile.
It does for a couple of reasons, I think. One is because mobile's everywhere now. But if you think about outside the U.S. too, like if you've got a client, if you're going to have a company that would have customers from elsewhere, a lot of other parts of the world, they don't have the same infrastructure that we do, and they never will from a wiring perspective. So they're mobile first there versus having something that is a wired, you know, desktop or something, or now on Wi-Fi, like everyone has Wi-Fi.
Yeah. It's interesting. So when I know we were talking about pay-per-click advertising or like different types of marketing, is there like a percentage of the gross revenue that you should keep in mind when spending money on marketing?
It's funny, even working for really big companies, I had always said that I would never spend more than 5% of gross revenue. Now that's just me. I think it depends on your business. If you're doing something that's really advertising intensive to get there, but if you look at it on the net, then I think you do the reverse and you look at what the net is, right? And you pick a percentage of net on how you go after spending that. But advertising, there's some other things that are really effective. Like I have a couple of friends here who do a lot of advertising with postcards. And people go, that's terrible. I'm like, yeah, I don't think it is, depending on what your business is, because people pick up their mail, they still read their mail, they still look at those things. So depending on what type of business you have, that may be more effective for your business than doing a ton of stuff that paid advertising online, right?
Right. And when you think about a postcard, if you can get someone's attention in, say, 3 seconds or less, they don't have to open a postcard. Like how many times at junk mail, people don't even open it, but a postcard, you don't open it.
I'll tell you another thing that's really cool. If you're selling a really high-end product, and you have to be able to selling a real high-end product because it's a little bit more expensive. If you send a FedEx to the person you want to get, you can guarantee it'll get open.
There you go. Listen to these tips. Amazing, 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 amazing. So real quick about your business, how can we connect people to you?
To me.
Because you do consulting also, right?
I do.
For startups?
I do. So New Market Partners does that. The easiest way to get me, if I'm going to give you something on the air, is joy@startupgrind.com.
Okay, great.
So, and if you follow me on Twitter, it's joy_Randalls. So pretty straightforward.
We're going to post that on Tampa Home Talk too, because I know sometimes people are driving or they're in their car and it's just easier to get it later. So I'm just curious, like when you talk about startups and that kind of stuff, what's the question that most people, like if you've got your business, it started, you've done it, and they look back and they go, this is the one thing I would have done different. What do you think that is a lot of the time? Like the one thing, if I could change this, I probably would have done this one little thing different.
The consistent answer seems to be start sooner.
Start sooner. It's interesting. I mean, and that's true. I think a lot of people, especially if they have a good job, you know, on a regular salary, it's kind of hard to break away from that.
I mean, it's you know, there's a lot of different analogies, right? People say like jumping off of a cliff and building your parachute on the way down, right? Or your airplane, those kind of things. And there definitely are some things like that. It's kind of like walking on razor blades some days.
And you have to love it. You know, pick a business you love and you'll never work another day in your life.
That's absolutely true.
Joy Randalls here. Thank you so much for joining us on Tampa Home Talk.
Thank you.
The
Thank you
pleasure
very much for
has been
having me.
all mine, and I just can't wait it. Real quick, Startup Grind, certain weekend every month?
Not necessarily. We try to do it the third Thursday, but this month it's a little bit different, and it'll be different in April as well.
And we're going to post all those details again for Startup Grind, so you entrepreneurs or want to be entrepreneurs can get some information. Follow Joyce Randall on Twitter. We're going to post her handle at Tampa Home Talk, and we will be back here next week, same time, same place, same station. But for this week, we are out.